Hi, this is Brass Check, and we're recording this on January 7th, 2024. And if you've been following us lately, we've been going into some original documentation and talking about stuff that nobody else is talking about. We actually have a book coming out too, hopefully very soon, called John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy's Battle Against Zionist Extremism, in which the whole book is based on original documents. Our argument is unassailable. Both Kennedy brothers were fighting against the very thing that Israel has been enabled to do, which is create havoc in the Middle East and untold suffering for countless civilians. They were hip to what Israel was up to back in the 60s. They tried to stop it. They're dead. And all the other presidents since then have pretty much gone along with the Zionist extremist agenda. But anyway, we also did something on J.P. Morgan's avid support of Jeffrey Epstein, who ran a child abuse ring. I don't call it a sex trafficking ring. It was a child abuse ring. Let's call it what it is. It was a child abuse ring. And we've got the documents. We did the video. We're only one of two news outlets that have brought this to light. J.P. Morgan was the bank for his network, for his child abuse network. So much so that they made available over a period of time $5 million, not in bank wires, not in bank checks, non-electronic transfers, in cash, $40,000 to $80,000 at a time. They would just pass it over the transom to him or one of his agents, and he would then use it to go out and, do whatever nefarious things he was up to. That's J.P. Morgan. They got away with it thanks to a corrupt Clinton-appointed judge in New York City. He has, a lot of stuff has come out, but a lot of the J.P. Morgan stuff remains sealed to this day, and this day is July 7th, 2024. Anyway, going along this theme of going to the original documents and reporting things that nobody else is reporting to you because they're too busy chasing memes, we're going to go and show you one of the most mind-boggling, and again, there's a few people talking about this, but not enough. One of the most mind-boggling things I've ever seen. Of course, not really a surprise, but I still am surprised by the depth of corruption. You've probably seen it. We're the wonderful, friendly folks at Zoom love to change their interface every 5 days. I'm not sure why they do that, but they do it. All right, let me see if I can get this working. Okay, there it is. This is the BMJ. Who are they? That's the British Medical Journal. They are theoretically one of the most reliable sources of medical information on the planet. They have certainly engaged in quite a bit of lying in the last 4 years, and the facilitation and enabling of liars. But, they do their best. So here's the article, and it's called Revolving Door. You are free to influence, quote, behind the scenes, FDA staff tells staff leaving for industry jobs. Okay, theoretically, there is a law that prohibits you from going from the federal government to a job in industry and acting as a lobbyist for the company. There are all sorts of restrictions and constraints. You may remember, it came out maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, that the NIH people at the National Institute of Health were being tutored by their compliance department on how to evade freedom of information requests. They were given a whole course. So when a congressman or a journalist or a private citizen asks for information that NIH is supposed to give, Fauci and friends were taught by their own compliance people, here's how you evade that. Here's how you hide emails. All right. That was pretty explosive. People should have gone to jail. Nobody went to jail. Nobody was even charged. Barely made a blip on the news media screen, mainstream and alternative. Here's another amazing thing discovered. So you're not supposed to go out there and be a cheerleader for your company after working for the federal government for several years. But uh, they are permitted to, they're not only permitted to influence indirectly, so they can't have a meeting, but they can call somebody at the FDA and say, hey, Bob, I'm sending over Bill. Bill goes and does all the influencing. And that's okay. In fact, when this one miscreant, let's see, was, oh, her name, his or her or it or whatever the name is, Doran Fink, scientist, physician scientist at the FDA, reviewing COVID-19 vaccines. That was his job. That was this person's job. Just got a job with, drum roll please, Moderna. And they were undergoing at the time he was undergoing mandatory FDA exit requirements. So he was given, here's the punchline, he was given all the guidelines on his post-employment restrictions. But just as the compliance officer at NIH helped them lie and basically burn documents and not provide them to the government or law enforcement or journalism, the people at the FDA tailored the instructions to Fink, perfect name for this person, on how they could get around the law. And they let Fink know, well, there's all kinds of things you're not allowed to do. However, the law does not prohibit former employees from other activities, including working behind the scenes. So in other words, you can't, if you work for the FDA for 20 years and you're embedded in the, let's say, the vaccine evaluation process, and then you go work for Moderna, you're not allowed to, polish up your briefcase and go over to the FDA and pitch the FDA on Moderna's latest monstrosity. You're not allowed to do that, but you are allowed to work, quote, behind the scenes. Unfreaking believable. This is in writing given to a FDA employee leaving the FDA and going to work for Moderna. And by the way, this is not a one-off. This is not, there was one errant employee and one errant situation. And yes, it's going to be correct. No. This phrase, behind the scenes, appears in several emails, not only to this Fink character, but someone named Jaya Goswami, another FDA medical officer, who reviewed Moderna's vaccine application and then conveniently got a super high-paying job at Moderna. That person was also told, there's all kinds of things the law says you can't do, but you can work behind the scenes. The FDA put that in writing. It's just the FDA, the BMJ asked the FDA whether it has any concerns that proactively informing employees about their ability to work behind the scenes could be interpreted as encouraging former FDA staff indirectly to lobby the agency. Well, an agency spokesman responded, no, working behind the scenes does not necessarily equate to direct or indirect lobbying activities. Lobbying activities are governed by the Lobbying Disclosure Act. Former employees would need to adhere to these requirements just like any other individual or organization, but you can work behind the scenes. U.S. lawmakers have introduced bills to try to amend this law. Both laws seek to prohibit health sector employees from serving on the boards of manufacturers of drugs. That would be a very good thing, biological products or medical devices. Senator James Vance is working on that. Another representative, Debbie Olesko, is working on that. I love it. She's got God bless her. The bill is called Fixing Administration Unethical Corrupt Influence Act, also known as the Fauci Act. Um, and that's about it. None of the bills have passed. Oh, big surprise. Big surprise. So anyway, you're unlikely to hear about this unless you actually read the British Medical Journal yourself, just as you are unlikely to know that talk about lobbying, and this brings us full circle. Coming out soon, our book, uh, JFK and RFK's Battle Against Zionist Extremism. Why are these two topics related? Well, one of the things that the Kennedy brothers, and they were a team, John was the president, Robert was the attorney general, unique in American history. It was highly criticized at the time, but it did allow for a high level of coordination, uh, otherwise not possible. By the way, what were they coordinating on? Well, one of the things they were coordinating on was trying to force the Israeli lobby to register and follow the law like all other foreign lobbies. That was a huge battle that was raging, not so coincidentally, in the summer of 1963. And of course, Kennedy was killed in the fall of 1963, and Robert Kennedy was killed in 1968. We have all the documents. There's no dispute. There's no vagueness. There's no lack of clarity. There's no subjectivity to this. Letter after letter, after telegram, after cable, making it crystal clear that the Kennedy administration insisted that Israel follow the law as a lobbyist, just like every other country on earth. Now, interestingly, what are we looking at today? We're looking at the FDA counseling, training, teaching, encouraging its scientists. When you leave the FDA for the big paycheck, be aware there's some laws, but you can skirt them and do your own thing. They put this in writing to their leaving employees. So lobbying seems to be the root of all evil. Is it going to be stopped? I don't know, but we're making this information available to you in a way that nobody else is, and we're showing that it goes across all branches of government. It goes across American history. The ability of people to covertly lobby Congress and the different departments of government is the source of our doom. And it is starting to look like doom. I don't know how any country, no matter, nothing cannot, there's no amount of money so large, there is no strategic position so great that you cannot over time blow it. And it appears that all these various people, Mr. or Ms. Fink, and perfectly named, and all these other lobbyists and all these agencies and all these government officials are all contributing mightily to the destruction and downfall of this country. And by the way, for certain people, it's already occurred. I mean, there are millions of people in this country, had this country been on some kind of sane footing, who would be employed, who would be housed, who would be on an upward trajectory, who would be able to afford rent, who would be able to afford food, who would be able to go to school, who would be able to get medical care, who aren't getting these things. So the collapse of America is really, it's happened. It's just a matter of, has it reached you yet? And if you look at the primary cause of it, it often boils down to a simple thing. You have a bunch of traders. There's a whole industry of traders who make their living selling out the American people to the highest bidder. So if you're supposed to be regulating vaccines and making sure people aren't having poison injected into their veins, well, then you get a job with Moderna, high six figures, to indirectly influence the FDA on behalf of a vaccine maker. This is happening in the Pentagon. This is happening in finance, God knows, in banking regulation. It's happening everywhere. It's how the country runs, and it is the reason we are in the situation that we're in. So these reports are bringing knowledge to you. Hopefully you'll share this knowledge with other people, and bit by bit, we'll support the handful of politicians that are trying to do something about this, and maybe this will become a big thing. We don't need more meme following. We don't need everybody amplifying on the meme of the day. We need to focus on the things that really matter, and we need to stick with our focus on the things that really matter and make a steady, constantly growing noise about them. And this lobbying situation is absolutely the root of all evil. And do your bit by sharing this video with others to get it stopped.
Brass Check TV, free to you, not free to us. We've got a server bill, we've got an email software bill, we've got a tech helper bill, and that happens every month. So to everybody that is supporting us financially, that's paying for their subscription in one way or another, we really appreciate it. If you're not, consider doing so. Everybody's got money for the newspaper and the cable bill and all that. Do you have money for media that's actually serving you? That's really the issue here. And when you help us, it allows us to get this information out to the world. So thanks to all our supporters, and if you're not a supporter already, please consider becoming one.